Hello to all. I hope everybody is doing well. So I'm starting with a new topic, that is tuberculosis. This topic is important from the theory exam point of view. Question comes very often. Then in the practical, gross specimen are kept on tubercular lymph node or intestinal tuberculosis, and again histopathology slides on these topics they are asked. And also from MCQ point of view and problem based questions point of view, this topic is very important. So without wasting any time, let's get started. First we come to the etiology. You already know that Mycobacterium tuberculosis can be caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, Mycobacterium bovis, Mycobacterium africanum and Mycobacterium microti. Out of these, Mycobacterium tuberculosis is the most common cause of tuberculosis. This M. bovis, it causes intestinal tuberculosis most commonly. Then these are the less common causes, Africanum and microti, and all these bacteria, they come under the group Mycobacterium tuberculosis complex. Mycobacterium tuberculosis is a slender aerobic rod, that's why it infects most commonly the lungs. Then it is non-motile. A question comes in the MCQs that Cod factor, it is an important factor responsible for the pathogenicity of Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and the unique feature of Mycobacterium is its cell wall, because of which it is acid fast. And another property of MTB is that it is weakly gram positive. So now coming to the cell wall of Mycobacterium tuberculosis, why it is so special. So Mycobacterium tuberculosis cell wall, it is made of many compounds. One of the most important compounds is mycolic acid. Besides, there are many other things like teichoic acid, peptidoglycan, lipoarabinoglycan in its cell wall, but mycolic acid is the most important constituent, which makes it acid fast and gives it this property that whenever we stain it with stains like carbylfuscin and we decolorize it with the help of acid or acid alcohol, this mycobacteria will resist that decolorization. So it is because of this mycolic acid. The stain will go into this bacteria, but it will not come out. It will not decolorize on even with the action of strong acids and acid alcohol mixtures, because of the presence of this mycolic acid. So we perform a stain which is given the name Ziehl-Neelsen stain, and in Ziehl-Neelsen stain we first of all add carbylfuscin to it. Carbylfuscin is a mixture of basic fuscin and phenol, and then we heat it so that the stain goes into the cell. After that, we decolorize it with acid alcohol or a strong acid like sulfuric acid, and after that we see under the microscope, and before that we also apply a counter stain to stain the background. So acid fast bacilli will give the color of the stain, because it does not decolorize by the action of the acid alcohol or the strong acid. This is the property known as acid fastness, and it is elicited by this mycobacteria because of the presence of mycolic acid in its cell wall. So this you should remember, many a times asked in the pathology as well as microbiology practical. Ziehl-Neelsen stain, its chief constituent is carbylfuscin. Carbylfuscin again consists of basic fuscin and phenol, and this will go into the bacteria, impart it a pink color. And even on the use of decolorizers like sulfuric acid or a mixture of acid alcohol, in which we add hydrochloric acid and alcohol, this stain will not go out, though this will resist the decolorization. Next, we apply the counter stain in the third step. And counter stain, the two counter stains commonly used are methylene blue and malachite green. Again, you should remember these two names. Now another important point is that Mycobacterium leprae, it is less acid fast than Mycobacterium tuberculosis, so it will require less concentration of acid alcohol or acid for decolorization in the procedure of Zn staining. So these are the points, like for tuberculosis we need 20% sulfuric acid, but for M. leprae we just need 5% concentration. Then acid alcohol concentration for TB we need 3% volume by volume, while for leprae we just need 0.5 to 1%, because it is less acid fast. Leprae is less acid fast than MTB. Another very important question which is asked in the viva very commonly And they asked what are the acid fast organisms besides Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So you can remember by this mnemonic which I have taken from this site, LMNOPQRS, in which PQ stands for nothing, and the L stands for Legionella, and for mycobacteria, and for nocardia, O consists of ICC. ICC stands for Isospora belli, Cyclospora, Cryptosporidium parvum. So these are the parasites. Then R stands for Rhodococcus, as for the sperm head. So this list you should always remember, and very commonly can be asked in the MCQ, can be asked in the Viva. And you should also know the principle behind this acid fastness of these organisms. So for mycobacteria, it is the mycolic acid. So this was about it. Next, tuberculosis is a chronic pulmonary and systemic disease caused most often by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and it is spread by the airborne droplet infection. So whenever a person coughs or sneezes or even speaks and saliva comes out of the mouth, then another healthy person, the droplets can go into its respiratory tract and reach the lungs, and the disease can spread from one person to another. TB is a global public health problem, and according to a WHO report of 2019, about 10 million people they developed the infection of TB. So it is one of the top causes of infectious death due to infection in the humans. So this disease is of public health importance. Next we come to the risk factors. So risk factors for tuberculosis are poverty, overcrowding, then chronic debilitating illness, immunocompromised states. So there are certain conditions which increase the risk of development of tuberculosis, like diabetes, Hodgkin lymphoma, chronic lung diseases, then chronic renal failure, malnutrition, alcoholism, immunosuppressed states like HIV, patient on glucocorticoids, and all that. And also this disease is more common in the developing countries. Now we come to the important aspect of tuberculosis, that is the pathogenesis of tuberculosis. So when we talk about primary tuberculosis, that is when the infection comes in a unsensitized and unexposed individual. The immune response is divided into two phases. One is the early phase response, and then there is a subsequent T helper 1 response, which comes usually after 3 weeks. So immune response in our body, we know that there is innate immune response and adaptive immune response. So this is the first response of the body for an infection is the innate immune response, and example for innate immunity are the epithelial barriers, then macrophages, dendritic cells, and complement proteins. All these come under the innate immunity, which is the first line of defense, and the subsequent line of defense is the adaptive immunity and consists of the T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. So MTB, when it comes in the body, it is recognized by the innate immune receptors, and those are the toll-like receptors. So we know that toll-like receptors, they recognize the foreign microorganisms, they recognize the dead and dying tissue proteins which are derived from that. So toll-like receptors 2 and 9, they recognize the MTB, and then it subsequently enhances the innate and the adaptive immune responses to the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So what happens in the earliest stage of primary TB of lung? So MTB gets entry into the host cell. It gets recognized by the toll-like receptors and it reaches the host cells. Mainly in the macrophages, there are receptors. There are two receptors, mannose binding lectin and complement receptor 3, and it binds with these receptors. And after that, the cell membrane of the macrophage, it will invaginate to form the phagosome. Now the bacteria in the phagosome, it recruits a protein known as coronin, and it inhibits the phagolysosome formation. Then we know that the role of phagolysosome, that lysosomes, they contain the hydrolytic enzyme. So when phagolysosome is formed, there is killing of the bacteria within that phagolysosome. So here in TB infection, what happens? This phagolysosome is not formed, and that bacteria escapes the degradation. So what happens now? It will start replicating, it will start multiplying, and it will multiply in the lung, in the alveolar macrophages, in the air spaces. Now when it replicates, it will later on lead to bacteremia. It will go into the blood and it can seed multiple sites. Now clinically, in the earlier stages, the patient is asymptomatic and he has only mild flu-like illness. Now in this diagram I have tried to illustrate what happens in the early response. So this is the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It binds to these receptors, mannose binding lectin and complement receptor 3 on the surface of the macrophage. Then it forms a phagosome. Now the phagosome recruits a protein, that is coronin, and this phagosome, normally it should combine with the lysosome to form the phagolysosome, and it should cause the killing of the bacteria inside this. But in Mycobacterium tuberculosis, because of this coronin, it is not formed and the bacteria multiplies within this phagosome, and thus replicating MTB bacilli will later on lead to bacteremia, and this composes the initial phase of the replication of MTB. Now the bacteria will be replicating inside our body, and it will reach the lymph nodes, lymphatics, and through that to the lymph nodes, where it will get to reach near the lymphocytes. So next, after that, there will be the lymphocyte response, and usually occurs 3 weeks post infection. So this is a delayed type of response, delayed type of hypersensitivity. And in this, what happens now, mycobacterial antigen will reach the draining lymph node. Now it has replicated, now it reaches the lymph nodes, and there it is displayed to the T cells. So the antigen presenting cells like macrophages, they present the bacteria to the T cells, and in this, when it presents the bacteria to the T cells, it causes the release of certain cytokines like interleukin 12 and 18, and when these are released, interleukin 12, 18, it will activate the T cells to the Th1 subset of cells. So T helper cells 1 will be stimulated to be formed when the antigen presenting cells present the bacteria to the T cells. Now this Th1 response is very important, and it mediates the killing of the mycobacteria. So Th1 cells in the lymph node and lung, it produces interferon gamma. This is very important to know in the pathogenesis of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Interferon gamma will cause the activation of the macrophages. And how this will kill the bacteria? There are 4 mechanisms. First is, now we know that in the early phase phagolysosome was not formed, but now with interferon gamma there will be maturation of phagolysosome within the infected macrophages, and this phagolysosome will lead to the intracellular killing of that bacteria. Then secondly, it will stimulate the expression of inducible nitric oxide synthetase, which will produce nitric oxide, and which will lead to the formation of reactive nitrogen intermediates. When it will react with the reactive oxygen species, it will form the reactive nitrogen intermediates, and they are highly reactive, and they will react with the different parts of the bacteria and kill it. So it will cause the killing of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And this point is very important, asked in the MCQs, that inducible nitric oxide synthetase is activated, forms NO, it combines with the free radicals to form the reactive nitrogen intermediates. You should remember this point. Thirdly, it will mobilize defensins, which are antimicrobial peptides, against the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Lastly, it will stimulate the autophagy, through which the intracellular organelles which are infected by MTB and the intracellular bacteria which is present in cytoplasm, it will get killed. So these are the 4 mechanisms which play a very important role, and they are quite effective in combating the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So generally in primary tuberculosis, the infection is self-limiting because of these mechanisms, and the primary infection, these responses, they come late, so they are kind of delayed, while when there will be reinfection like secondary tuberculosis, or there is the reactivation of a dormant focus in the body, then that response will be prompt, because then there are the activation of the mammary T cells. So this is the first response in an unsensitized, unexposed individual, which is summarized in this picture, which I have taken from the Robbins. So this is the early phase. The macrophage, the bacteria binds to the macrophage through these receptor MBL and CR3, and there will be lack of phagolysosome formation, because of which the bacteria will replicate. And after 3 weeks, what will happen? The macrophage, the bacteria, they will reach the lymph nodes, and the bacteria will be presented to the T cells by the macrophages and through the class 2 MHC molecules, and there will be release of interleukin 12. So interleukin 12 will activate the T cell to form the T helper 1 cell, This will release interferon gamma. Now this is very important. This will cause the killing of the intracellular Mycobacterium tuberculosis by those 4 mechanisms, that is the phagolysosome maturation, then production of nitric oxide and the reactive nitrogen intermediates, then production of defensins, and also autophagy. So that will cause the killing of the bacteria. Also, this is the basis for the positive Montouf's test, that is in which the PPD is injected intradermally and it causes induration. So this T helper response is responsible for that Montouf's reaction. And there is another important thing is that these activated macrophages, they release the tumor necrosis factor, chemokines, that will cause the recruitment of monocytes from the blood, and that will also reach this site of infection and help in the granuloma formation. So what happens in the granuloma formation? These macrophages, they get activated and they change their shape to these slipper shaped epithelioid cells, and these epithelioid cells, they will come together along with the lymphocytes. These are the CD4 positive T helper cells, these lymphocytes, and in the center they may cause caseation necrosis, forming the granuloma. So there will be formation of granuloma which will try to contain the bacteria within its confines. So bacteria, it will try to contain the bacteria, it will try to limit this reaction, these replication of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, forming the granuloma. So granulomatous inflammation, it is a hallmark or characteristic feature of tubercular infection, in which the macrophages which are activated by the interferon gamma, they differentiate into epithelioid histiocytes. So epithelioid histiocytes, they are the histiocytes or macrophages, they assume a epithelioid or a slipper shape, they become epithelioid. So they assume a slipper, this elongated spindle shape, and sometimes they also fuse to form giant cells, and the giant in that giant cell, the nuclei, they are arranged in the periphery in a horseshoe shape manner. So you know that the shape of horseshoe is like this, and in this Langerhans giant cell also the nuclear arrangement is in the form of horseshoe. Now the purpose of this granuloma is that it contains the infection, but also at the cost of destruction of the parenchyma of the lung, and caseation necrosis can also be seen. So you have to remember how this granuloma is formed. This interferon gamma plays a very important role in the granuloma formation, and what is Langerhans giant cell, and for what purpose this granuloma is formed. And you always have to remember that the nuclear arrangement in Langerhans giant cell is the horseshoe shape pattern. Again, this is a picture from the Robbins and shows the mechanism of granuloma formation. It is more or less the same as the as I told you in the pathogenesis of MTB. So antigen presenting cell presenting the MTB to the T cells, which is now stimulated to form the T helper cells. T helper cells releases the interferon gamma, which will activate the macrophage, and this activated macrophage will further secrete the interleukin 12 cytokines, which will cause the activation of T helper cells. So there is mutual activation of T activated macrophage and the T helper cells, and also it will recruit the monocyte from the blood circulation by the release of TNF and chemokines. This monocytes will reach the tissue and form the activated macrophages. So these macrophages, now they assume a slipper shape, spindle shape, and they accumulate pale granular cytoplasm, abundant cytoplasm, and they form these epithelioid cells. They can fuse to form the giant cell, Langerhans giant cell. In the periphery, these red colored T lymphocytes, these are there, and in the chronically the granuloma may acquire fibroblast in the wall, in its wall. So this forms the granuloma. So basically there are 4 components of the granuloma. One is the epithelioid cells, and which is slipper shaped, oval elongate nucleus and pink granular cytoplasm. Second component important is lymphocyte. Then giant cell may be there, epithelioid cells fuse to form the giant cells, and caseous necrosis may be present or may be absent. And in the older granulomas, fibroblast may be present in the most peripheral location. So this is again very important to know. This is granuloma. This is in the center, there is a giant cell with the horseshoe arrangement of the nuclei, and these are the epithelioid cells. You can see these are the epithelioid cells, they have a vesicular chromatin, and these darkly stained, these blue ones, these blue dots, these are the lymphocytes, and in the most periphery of the lesions there are the fibroblast. So you can appreciate the shape of the epithelioid cell, which is like the slipper shaped. So summary of the immune response. Immunity to the MTB is primarily mediated by the T helper cells, Th1 cells. So you should remember that this Th1 subset of the T helper cells, CD4 positive, they will stimulate the macrophage to kill the bacteria. And this immune response, it is effective, but it comes at the cost of accompanying tissue destruction. So it will cause the destruction of the parenchyma of the lung. Then sometimes what happens, this lesion, the initial lesion where this immune response is occurring, it becomes dormant, and the viable bacilli remain within this lesion, but it remains latent or dormant for many years. And when the immunity comes down, it drops, then there is reactivation, and reactivation leading to secondary tuberculosis. So when reactivation of this infection occurs, then the immune response will be rapid, it will be prompt, and it will be accompanied with increased tissue necrosis. The initial response is delayed, but when there is reactivation in immunocompetent individual, it will be a prompt response. Now, host susceptibility to the disease. So there is an increased risk of active disease and the disease which is progressing further in case of the patients who are immunocompromised, because there the immune response will not be mounted. Like in case of HIV, in patients on the glucocorticoids, then in patients who are on TNF inhibitors, patient who have received transplants and they are on immunosuppressants, patient of chronic renal failure, and people who are malnourished. So they will have a weak immune response, and they have more chances of getting a very active and progressive disease. Lastly, so tuberculin test. So this pathogenesis, it forms the basis of this tuberculin test, and in patients who have present or past infection of TB, or even the people who are vaccinated for TB, they give a positive tuberculin test. In tuberculin test, we inject the purified protein derivatives which are derived from the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and they are injected intradermally into the patient, and in case the patient mounts a immune response, they will be seen in duration at that site, and we measure that in duration and give the interpretation of the result. So if there is any past or present infection by TB, then patient will give a positive Monto's test. If the test is negative, then in a patient who was earlier giving a positive test, it means that there is a loss of T cell immunity in that person. Also, in a vaccinated patient, it gives a false positive test. So it is just a screening test, it is not a diagnostic test. And now another screening test are available, like interferon gamma release assay, which are better because they are not positive in case of the vaccinated patients. So it is a part of the screening test. Now in the next part I will be covering the clinical features and stages, and these are my references. Thank you very much.